Well, it's another sunny, bright Thursday morning here in Atlanta, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar series that we started in April 2020. I believe we have now run more than 50 of these hour-long webinars for us international business educators, and we come to you today yet with another interesting topic and very interesting speakers. I'm Professor Tamer Çavuşgil at Georgia State University CIBER, and I welcome everybody, especially those who joined us for the first time today. So welcome to all of you. I'm very proud to say that this one in our series is sponsored also by the Academy of International Business Teaching and Education, SIG, Shared Interest Group. And our collaboration continues, and we look forward to offering you many more interesting workshops, webinars with the AIB Teaching and Education SIG. You're also, I think, probably familiar with CIBER, Centers for International Business Education and Research, partially funded by the US Department of Education, and with the mission of internationalizing business education, business curriculum, business faculty. I want to remind everybody that this session is being recorded and will be available to you and those in your network. So please share the link which you will receive after the webinar with your colleagues so more people can benefit from it. The recording will also be available on our Georgia State CIBER website, as well as Georgia State CIBER YouTube channel. When you do exit in about an hour or so, there will be a short survey with 5 short questions. So please stay on before you log off and respond to those questions because we're always looking for feedback from you and ideas for future webinars and speakers. So please do that before you exit the program. I also want to remind that everybody except the panelists is muted in the webinar. There will be an opportunity for those of you who joined us today from around the world, I see, and a good number of you. Please use Q&A function for your comments and questions. And if you need any special assistance, please use the chat function. We will leave a few minutes at the end of our conversation this morning with our distinguished colleagues from Adam Smith Business School, University of Glasgow. So there will be a few minutes where we'll have a chance to perhaps respond to some of your questions. If we're not able to do all of it, we'll send you some email messages also. And our colleagues will share with you some of their resources that they find useful and are willing to share with you, their PowerPoint presentations and any other material that they have developed. So let's get back to the theme of today's conversation, which is very interesting and number one agenda really for educators in general, and it has to deal with student engagement. I find that to be really our biggest challenge with this generation of students. So we have tried many ways. Each of us has developed our own ways of engaging the students, putting the students in the center of the learning process. So we talked about flipped learning, flipped classroom, student-centered teaching, and so on. Today, we bring you 3 colleagues who have spent at least a couple of years developing their own approach, team-based learning approach to student engagement. I think you'll find the conversation, their ideas and experiences to be very worthwhile. And I understand, Margaret, Ike, and Sarah, that you have also applied this now to online and blended learning formats. So it will be interesting to see how you pivoted from the traditional in-person teaching to the online teaching as well. And I understand also you developed some class response systems along with your experimentation, and ways in which you assess learning and contrast it to other forms of learning. So with that, let me just say a few things about our speakers and introduce them. And I apologize to all three of you in advance. It'll be very brief, but people do have your bios available to them. Margaret, welcome. Margaret Fletcher, of course, also from Adam Smith Business School, University of Glasgow, where she's a senior lecturer. Margaret, I think you also led the MSc in International Business program at Adam Smith Business School. You invested a lot of your time and effort into experiential learning pedagogical tools. You have your PhD from University of Glasgow and MBA from University of Edinburgh, so you cover two big schools in Scotland. You published, I know, I read a lot of your work in international entrepreneurship and IB, learning process, especially in the internationalization of firms. You are a leader in the AIB teaching and education SIG, an officer there, and you're active with the, I know I met you several times in the UKI AIB meetings as well. And you're also active in equality and diversity initiatives at your university, which is something very, very important. And at another forum, we'd love to hear about that too. So welcome, Margaret. Now I'd like to welcome Sarah Honeychurch. Sarah is also, of course, at the University of Glasgow, Adam Smith Business School. I enjoy saying Adam Smith. I think that's, like you said, your university says, the founding father of our discipline. Certainly, I got my early education in economics, so we have all been blessed with his insights. Remarkable person. Sarah Honeychurch is a teaching fellow and school leader for assessment and feedback. Sarah, you developed new methods for assessment and feedback, and that's very important. So we do all these new experiments trying to engage our students, but what is the impact and how do we assess formally the learning and student feedback? Sarah, you have your BA and MA degrees in philosophy from the University of Southampton. You're also an editor with the journal Research in Learning Technologies. So certainly you invested a lot in pedagogy and learning, which we appreciate. And finally, we have Ike Ikeguno. Ike, you are a specialist tutor and you're also working on your PhD in international entrepreneurship and management. I think you've been in industry as well and several continents. I didn't have a chance to cover all of that, but you worked in small business management, entrepreneurship, economic development, change management, all interesting topics to me as well. So it's part of your research, you're focusing on network effects, how network effects moderate access to finance in early stage technology ventures. Welcome to all three of you, and we really appreciate your time and expertise and willingness to share with us your takeaways for the rest of us struggling with new ways of inspiring our students in the classroom. So team-based learning obviously is very critical part of that, and I think it works well. Maybe, Margaret, I'll start by asking you, tell us about your collaboration, the three of you, how you saw the need, how you went about responding to the need, how you refined your team-based learning pedagogy, experimented with it, gotten feedback from the students, and now you are certainly at a point where you can share your insights and best practices. So
Okay.
tell us a little bit about the story of this big project.
Okay, thank you, Tamir. Yeah, I took over as convener or director of the MSc in International Business. As you mentioned, it had a very strong experiential learning pedagogy, and part of that was two substantial projects that ran in through the programme, one in semester 1 and one in semester 2, very group-based projects. Now, one was on there's also a strong thread of international entrepreneurship that historically has run through the programme as well. So in the first semester, we're part of of the business school's specialist management masters. So the students do their 4 master's programmes, and they do a general introduction to business topics. For the first 3 weeks, global business environment, international strategic management, and managing across cultures and comparative management. So they all do that as a core, and then they come on to the IB, where there's quite an intensive accelerated programme for the year. You know, if you think of undergrads, they have 3 or 4 years to develop the relationships and to work in teams and to learn slowly. But I always think with an MSc, it's really accelerated. The students are under pressure. They've invested a lot of time, a lot of money, you know, and they're under a lot of pressure. So this used a lot of group work, which we know has its tensions, and you know, we know from business schools getting everyone to cooperate, problems with freeloaders, tensions perhaps in the creation of groups or working through the groups. So I was very aware of that. I got involved in a university-wide project where it was recognised the importance of having good guidance for the students in their group work, and helped to take the university guidelines and put it into the business school. But I was still looking for something a bit more to really provide support for our students. The first semester programme is a startup programme, and it draws in from 3 courses, so that was very innovative. But obviously, you know, there's high stakes here, although the group project, we tried to reduce that pressure by making it worth 25% of the marks and individual assessments for the other component of 75 across 3 courses. And then the second semester course is where they will go into a company, and they actually work in a real company to help the company internationalise its products. And there's a huge development of the students through this. So I wanted to provide safety nets and provide good instruction. And at the time, about 3 years ago, Sarah led, we have a stream of teaching and learning resources and courses that we can go on as staff. And there was one that Sarah set up on TeamBased Learning early, I think 2019. Serendipitously, I had to move office and found myself next door to Sarah. So that really helped with really us, you know, getting to know each other and develop it. And then a month or 2 later, the Dean of the Business School had this great idea to employ some specialist tutors to help us to innovate and create new programmes and put extra resources in to develop new ideas. And luckily, IKE was allocated to the international business cluster, and I was able to, and I was put as his mentor to help him help us, you know, to develop innovative programmes. So we started off so the students had done their 3 weeks with the general courses, and then they came to us. So we had discussions, and we decided to start off with this team-based learning workshop. I had done it as a participant through the teaching and education unit, and just thought this is great. I can really see this working with us. So Sarah, Ike and I developed it, and we put it on as an extra 3-hour workshop at the beginning of the course to really help the students to appreciate diversity, to be aware of the fact, as the programme changed over the years, I was making it more and more explicit that it was about diversity, it was about equality, it was about inclusion, and trying to put over this appreciation of diversity. So it worked in really well, because that's really the philosophy of the team-based learning course and frameworks. So we put it on at the beginning of the course, and as a team building, but also as students to really start to think about themselves as working in multicultural teams, and to learn those lessons to take them back into, first of all, to their projects in semester 1 and semester 2, and then to take it back into the workplace when they graduate. So maybe I could ask Ike to come in and tell a little bit more about what he did running that. How does that sound?
That's great. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for that overview. Mike, if you can unmute yourself.
Unmute, yeah.
I was going to think that Sarah will come in terms of explaining what the theory around this is. Maybe that will give me a little bit more time to come with the practice side of it. Margaret, would that be okay?
Sure. Maybe I'll just do a little a little slide share here first of all,
Okay.
which I was going to do.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, just to get us started. So, first of all, I wanted to say hi from Glasgow. This is a picture in case whoops, in case you haven't been, and also to say thank you very much to CIBER and Georgia State University and the EIB teaching, and then just really to say what the three of us will do during this session. So I'm going to take I've introduced and do a little bit more introduction perhaps on the international business and the rationale, which I've covered some of. Sarah will do a bit on theory actually, in the background and concepts and theory of team-based learning that I think will set the scene. And then Ike will talk about how we adapted it in the course for the MSc and also then took it on to a blended or online learning approach. And here's a picture of Adam Smith that we couldn't miss out in case anyone isn't familiar with the great man. So thank you. So, whoops, I don't think we'll need this. There we are, and I'll just stop sharing the screen. Yeah, okay. Maybe just before I hand on to Sarah, I could just say a little bit about actually what we were doing in terms of developing diversity. So what we did was, particularly semester one course, we focused the groups. We're trying to create diversity and create an appreciation. So we started off in semester one by looking at country. We have a very diverse with 16 countries, students from 16 countries, but there was still quite a lot from certain regions, particularly Asia, which I think we've all experienced. So we looked at country, but also regional backgrounds. So we split the groups up into regional as well as country backgrounds. And the other factor that we used was gender. So we had, generally we found that sort of 2/3 of the students were female and a third male. So that was quite a feat to try and create the diverse teams as well, to try and give them experience of working in diversity. With semester two, we took it a stage further. We looked, because these were company specific projects, we wanted to look at the students' prior experiences before, prior education, prior experience and qualifications. So we took that in depending on what business functions they worked with before and had experience with. And then we also did a personality type assessment, again, to help allocate the groups for the semester two using either Belbin or framework we have called personality poker, where we divide people into goal-orientated, creatives, planners, or relational types or analyst types. So that's a really good format as well. And again, we created these multi-diverse teams to work so that, and made it very explicit as well, so the students, were aware of what we were doing. So that's really all I want to say about the course. So maybe I could hand over to Sarah first to tell us a little bit about the background of the concepts and theory of TBL.
Yep, sure. So team-based learning is a special form of collaborative learning, and it uses a very highly structured sequence of individual work, group work, and immediate feedback. So it's very motivational. So it's very, very structured. It worked very, very well in this course because both Margaret and Ike are just such superb educators. Honestly, you would not believe the dedication that their students have to the course. It's really something quite special. So it was fabulous to work with them. I think what I will do is I will share my screen for a minute, if that's okay. Okay, so the really, really important thing about team-based learning is that it makes students accountable to each other. So it gets over a lot of the problems of freeloading that can happen in other courses. because students have to come to class prepared, because if they don't come to class prepared, firstly, they can't achieve anything, and secondly, it lets their classmates down. And you do find sometimes early on that you will get problems with freeloading, but because it's a highly structured, and quite often it's a long period of time, it can go over a whole module or a whole year. As the students get more used to doing this technique, they stop the freeloading because not even peer pressure, but it's not wanting to let their fellow students down. So, key design principles. As I said, it's highly structured. Teams must be properly formed and managed. And I saw the way that Margaret and Ike did that. I was so impressed that not only did they really thought about diversity. As Margaret said, it's not just students being from Asia, but what part of Asia? Are they from a big city, or are they from a village, and all the different types of diversity? So Margaret really thought that through, and that obviously had an effect. The groups are permanent, they stay together. Groups are 5 to 7. I think 7 is a little bit big, actually. 5 to 6, we would say. They stay together for a long period of time, so they get to know each other. They must be motivated. Of course, they must be motivated. I'll talk about that a little bit more. And as I say, they are accountable to each other. They're not anonymous, they're not passive, they're active learners who are part of a team and who like each other normally. So, very, very, very structured process. It's flipped classroom. So what Margaret and Ike would do is they would send reading materials, which might just be reading or they might be videos. These would go to the students about a week in advance, so that the students had time to prepare. And my goodness, they did prepare. I'm very used to students coming along. Margaret students, Ike students, they prepare. They come along to class, they are dead in and do things. We then got them to do an individual test beforehand of factual concepts, multi-choice concepts, and we used our bespoke voting system called Yakas to do that. They do the individually, and then when they come into the class in their groups, they do the same test again. And what is usually found is that students do better in the group than they do individually, because they have to talk to each other about, hey, I said A and you said B. Why do you say B? Why do I say A? So they can't just guess, they've got to actually justify what they're doing. Then at that stage, Ike and Margaret would have a look and see what students weren't quite picking up on, and they could remediate that with a 1 to 2 minute lecture, so just in time teaching. So another really good technique. All the students, then you know they're on the same page, and then they get put into their groups and they do application exercises, which are case studies. And Ike will talk more about the actual exercises that we did with the class. Traditionally, it would have been done in class, but as Ike will talk through, we did all of this so that the group exercises were all done over Zoom. So there were with a group of us, and we ran the Zoom breakout rooms. Have I said enough, Ike, do you think? Do you want me to say any more?
I think you've covered quite a good stop there. So
Right. So I need to work out how to stop screen sharing. Oh, you know me, Ike, I can't work out how to stop screen sharing.
should be under. It should be under there.
At the top?
Yes.
Scroll your mouse and it'll appear at the bottom. Actually,
It should come. It should just appear on the bottom.
Yeah.
No, I've lost the whole thing.
Right. Okay. Go back to just use an escape. Touch on the escape. Your most of your will come back again.
Ah, right, I've got it. It's on the other screen. That's why.
Good.
Sorry.
No, you using two screens. That always. Right. Okay. Should I come here?
Yeah, actually, if you can also, Sarah talked about cases.
Yes.
So these
Okay.
cases are how long, and they're assigned in advance, and you expect the students to read it, but I'm sure, things happen and students do not read. So tell us a little bit about how you would deal with some of the wrinkles in the
Yes.
process
Yes.
as well.
Yeah. There are two things there about team-based learning. Is one is about group decision making. The other is about collaborative working. But the most important thing when I look at team-based learning is about how you motivate your students. So team-based learning motivates students to a high level of preparation, a high level of attendance, a high level of participation, and also a high level of critical thinking. And that's what makes it quite really interesting. If I come from my background, I spent 15 years of my life building teams of entrepreneurs. So I worked for the city of Edinburgh as an enterprise manager, looking after about 35 different incubators. And in each of these incubators, I will have about 60 entrepreneurs. And each of these groups, we form them in teams. So it's quite a challenging work to really get adults to work in teams. And so team-based learning for me didn't start with this course. It's about how do you bring people together to actually work. What Margaret said is about actually diversity. So we use the different models of forming teams. So you need to have a permanent team. From day one, when the students come, we put them in groups with different diverse groups, and they work with those groups throughout the semester, the school year. That means the whole idea of forming and norming and getting people work together, just they gel together. You will find one odd case where one student is not playing along, and in those cases, we actually call them back and sit down with the group and have a good discussion. Often they come back to say, we enjoyed it. We want to go back and work with our team. So students actually also engage with the content in an applied way instead of more kind of theoretical. What we do, maybe I'll share my screen a little bit here. Right, okay. So if you look at team-based learning, the traditional model is a situation where we work with students in physical environment. Now, during the COVID, as everyone, every country, as every university experience, we have to move away from campus to protect each other. The social distancing came about, so we needed to design a model, a way by which we can deliver learning to students. So we used a remote model, but we can actually incorporate a really fine model whereby it doesn't matter the number of students you had. In fact, in my introduction to management course, I had 240 students in that course, and we could create several teams of students. In the market analysis course, we had about 69 students, and those 69 students, we put them into groups of 5 and 6.
If I can ask a question, and a couple of you talked about forming the student groups right from the outset. Do you do the student group formations based on some knowledge of who they are, what they bring into it? Is it a random process? One of our participants is asking, is this random, or is it, with the knowledge of what you know a little bit about each of them, and to put together in a complementary fashion?
Margaret can come in there quickly.
Yeah, it's very much not random. Semester one, we're using their gender, their background, their courses they've done before, their degrees before, and which location they're geographical. And then by the time we go to semester 2, which is the higher stake course, you know, where they're actually going into companies, we're taking that even more. We've got much more knowledge about the students. And we do the personality, we'll look at the marks and where they perform best, and we match them to the student projects as well, to the company projects. So it's very much not random, and it's a lot of work actually at the pre-stage, but it's very worthwhile, you know, to do that and to get good. Because one of the issues we had originally before we were doing this was I did experiment with different ways of forming groups over the years, just to see, but there were always some sort of tensions, whether you let them have more say in their groups or whether you did it whatever different criteria you used. So so we've been fine-tuning that as well over the years to try and get the allocations that work for the type of course that they're doing as well. So yeah.
So that's a good point. So this team-based learning does bring some additional workload up front, but I think it pays off in the long run. Once you invest the time to putting the teams together strategically on a purposeful way, you see the benefits down the road. So upfront investment is a lot, but then I think it makes it easier down the road.
Yeah.
Absolutely. From my experience, the most time is the initial time you need to design the course and structure the course and form the groups. And once that is up and running, you gain quite a lot of time. In fact, the student at a time, when I held this with academics, and the first question they asked me is, wouldn't students take over their role as teachers? But that's never been the case. Actually, there are points where students come back to you asking more questions. You just sit down and answer their question, because they become mini teachers, if that's something you can say there. But looking at the structure of team-based learning here, the pre-class is the pre-class is so important because students are highly motivated to actually prepare for class. It's not usually students come to class and they get materials in a traditional model, and then they go back and they read those materials. But in a team-based learning model, students prepare before they come to class. So it's not the lecturer, the teacher, the educator who students are the ones who prepare, so they get motivated. And in the online model, they prepare and answer some quiz questions before they come to class, and they save that in YACOS, which is our technology that we use to monitor or to do assessment, early assessment. Once they do that in class, you find out that they are so motivated, they almost know at least 75% of what the topic is. So they start even before they come to class to have awareness of what the topic is, to contribute to the discussion. So when they come to class, when you have the in-class activities, which is the application exercises, the students are up and running with the course. They just interacting. You can't even shut them up because they want to talk, they want to discuss it. So it's very lively session. So you find out that the class become a bit more lively than usual. I put an example of some of the questions how we structure the questions, but students you can give them so many different applications. So from the pre-reading, they can read entire chapter of a book. So
again, I'm interrupting, but I think I want to emphasize this, the point that you all made, accountability to each other. So in a normal course, the students are just accountable to the instructor. Okay, but in this team-based learning, you add to that by infusing accountability to each other, to team members. So nobody wants to look bad in the group to the rest of the team I think they really are concerned about what their peers think about them, not just the instructor. I mean, I guess instructors are important too, but maybe sometimes peers' opinions are more important to this age group. My question here is, do you have a team leader? Do you ask the team to put together a team leaders, or is it everybody at equal level?
No, we would specifically say to students, when you go into your groups, you need to appoint a timekeeper, you need to appoint a note keeper, and you need to appoint a leader, and you need to appoint a speaker. And we would say which roles we would like them to appoint. And we would not expect people to keep these roles throughout the whole of the course. We would expect them to rotate if they wanted to. But importantly, because we've done things like Belbin, we've done personality poker, we've also got students to think about what their strengths are. So that as a team, they realise that it's not just being the speaker that's the important thing. The person taking the notes and the person keeping the time are just as important.
I can come quickly here. So take the entrepreneurship course, for example, where students are set on groups to come with a business idea and develop the business plan and do a financial plan. So in that kind of group, you need to have a chief executive. So the students have to look inward within the group and choose who will lead that group. Who will be the leader, who will be the finance chief, who will be the IT chief. So they give people different roles, but these roles are not permanent. For one course, you might be the lead on that course. In another course, you are a note taker. So we try to make sure that students get a number of roles within throughout the school year. So each course, there is a group work, and there is the big project, which is the IMS project, which throughout the course, they have learned all these skills, and then they can now go ahead to do the bigger group project. And that is really good for them. When they come out of that project, you see where they are competing with each group. It's so exciting to watch them. And that's the last one I had with Sarah was the students were asked to design a 60 seconds elevator pitch in 20 minutes. And they only need to watch an elevator pitch on a video of 2 minutes and design an elevator pitch. And you do need to experience, though they go on their rooms, on Zoom rooms, and we can ghost them. We can go in to watch what they're doing without them seeing us. It's very, very exciting what they're working. They're looking at different people, bringing different ideas, working together. So throughout the time of the course, it's active. The students are active, they're interacting, they're communicating, and they're presenting their work simultaneously. And that makes it really quite interesting. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Should I stop sharing? There was something, I'm not sure where you are, but I wanted to, some of the examples will come to that, but I wanted to show this slide in terms of the feedback. You talked about the feedback, how we assess students, because there are 3 key elements in this in terms of accountability. So we have, we assess students by their initial reading, so pre-reading, by the way they perform in the quizzes initially, we can assess them through that. We also assess students by how they participate in the group discussion in the application. And then the final one is the feedback from other students. Really, that's even more interesting because the students will tell you more, because it's anonymous, the students will tell you more about themselves by talking about other students. So you can actually just read it and get excited to read their comments about it. But you find out how they work really together. What we found out is that at the end of the market analysis course, this is at the end of the course because the entire course we structured the entire course using TeamBased Learning. 73% of students responded to the course evaluation. That has been the highest we've had in the school. 73% of students responded to the evaluation. 96% of students who responded agreed or strongly agreed that they had opportunity to interact. And we had videos about it. So it's basically, they had a real life experience. Some of the comments they made was like, it felt like doing an entrepreneurial project for them. So they didn't just look at it in terms of being a theoretical course. They had opportunity to meet entrepreneurs, people who have set up and run their own businesses. They can learn from them and then come back to experiment themselves in class and between working together with their peers. Yeah, so I'll stop sharing here.
I guess a couple of questions from our participants. One is has to do with the free rider issue that you talked about. I mean, do you allow the student teams to regulate that and police and balance contributions from each student, or do you intervene? That is one question. And then a second question is Discord, disagreements, disputes among the team members. And do you intervene yourself, or do you allow the team to work that out on their own?
This course uses a method by which students report weekly the diary. So the diary is so important because with the diary, one aspect of the diary is to tell us whether there are issues in the group. So we can capture that problem before it escalates. So using that diary, if one or two students report the same issue, we can call that group together and have a conversation with the group. So we rarely have had a situation where students had problem with each other, even though we've had 240 students in one group. We've had 69 students in other groups. We have rarely had group conflicts because at the start of this, we teach them, we have a whole workshop that's called group development workshop, which the students learn about everything that has to do with working in groups, the challenges with working in groups, and they begin to work with each other. We also make them aware that conflicts will come and they have routes through which they can inform us that there is a conflict, and through that route we can actually begin to address it before it escalates. So really, throughout the course, it's an experience that you as an educator, you sit down and watch the students grow, mature in the way they interact, relate with each other. But I must also say that this evaluation in terms of students' feedback and evaluation peer feedback, they're only formative. They're not summative. So we don't use this as part of our final grading. At the end, students have to do project work and they have to do written work as well as class like reports of their work. So these are just formative assessments.
So you might as well tell us a little bit about the way you go about grading group contribution versus individual contribution. How do you sort that out?
Okay, so let me take one of the courses, market analysis. Market analysis is divided into two. Now, Margaret touched that earlier on. What the group work has 75% of your work, and that is a reflective essay of your participation in the group. So you write an individual essay about how you participate in the group. So there are three elements of that. one element of it is you have to come up with a theory. So a theory, and then you relate that theory into real life, how you participated in the group, and you reflect on your experience. That's the group, that's the individual assignment. The group assignment is the 25% of the work. And the students, how you work in your group, how you participate in your group, everything you did in your group, you produce a business plan as a group. And we are on, and then you do a presentation. So on the final day of the course, students do each group present their project. And during that presentation, it's a 15 minutes presentation and then another 15 minutes of question which other students and also the academics ask them. So we usually assess them by that presentation. The business plan they submit is just for us to read through, so we are aware what they have produced, and we make sure. But throughout the course, they get support. So we have also all the graduate assistants who support them to work on their business, their group projects. They get continuous support throughout the course.
Excellent, thank you.
I think that I mentioned what is a design feature for semester one, and it's to take some of the pressure off so that they still predominantly can get marks from the 70 for the individual work, and the 25% is the group work. Because when they come on to semester two, it's 100% assessed on group work. So I tell them, this is your safety net, this is your learning experience in semester one, because people do get anxious, and they did get worried about, this multidisciplinary, diverse groups, and that really tried to support and to help them so that they know that there's these projects coming up in semester two. And these are high stake projects. Sometimes they get offered jobs in the companies. And these, there's a total transformation in the students from when they come in to when they do these final presentations too, and the companies come in, of the academics and faculty are there, their other peers are listening into the presentations. So it's structured really to, to provide the support that they need when they're working in such diverse groups, because it is very challenging.
Yeah, I think that's what Margaret said I wanted to mention, is that these students are not just doing their course to go back. Some of them are international students to go back. Some of them from that course, they are already setting up their own businesses. I mean, there are some of those are running from a history of the course, are running multi-million businesses from what they learn from the course. They start to apply to funding within Scotland, small bits of funding for startup funding. So we provide them all these avenues of support in terms of from idea level, but some of them get snapped by businesses as well. So they start and then working with the business as student consultant, and then they move into actually being part of those businesses, which makes it really quite interesting.
Yeah, they are all international business focused projects as well. So some are going back to work in family businesses. They've come here, to get the expertise and become global managers in global businesses and multinational companies. So there's a whole spread of different types of employment and entrepreneurial endeavours that they go into.
It seems that colleagues, with team-based learning, you're actually simulating the actual real-world work environment, where we always, especially larger the organization, we always work with teams. We always have to learn how to get along, collaborate, and be productive. So in a sense, you're giving them an opportunity, a laboratory for them to refine their skills, learn these skills, sharpen these skills, so that they are readier for the job market and for the real world. A question here is there an ideal size, class size? I mean, do you find that it works better for smaller classes? You talked about the ideal size of the group, 6, you said, Sarah. maybe 5, 6, but not 7. But what about the larger class? I mean, how large? Are we talking about 100, 300? Does it make a difference?
It can be done with any size. A lot of the big pharmacy courses that have used it will have 350, 400 students. Really, I think if you're doing it in a face-to-face environment, it would be limited by the size of your room. We have a new 500-seater active learning space at Glasgow University that obviously under pandemic conditions we can't use, but the plan would have been that we would have had groups of 500 in the business school doing team-based learning. But importantly, of course, you're not doing it on your own. You would have team teaching as well as team learning. So Ike, if you want to say something about the classes you've used it for. You're muted.
I've mentioned that earlier. It doesn't really matter the size of the size of the class. It can be noisy when you have large classes. That's true, because I remember that the undergraduate course where I had 241 students in that course, and I tested them out throughout with team-based learning. Interestingly, why I say online model, team-based learning, a remote model is quite interesting, because you don't necessarily need the number of tutors to support them when you're doing the online. In a physical environment, you need more tutors to support the students. But here we created I think we had about 35 groups of students working at the same time. What matters is that they are solving the same problem, and they are doing it simultaneously. So the response comes at the same time. So it's not like someone done it, others see what they have done, and then they respond. It has to happen at the same time. So sometimes we are looking at the time who responded quickest. So you can actually use that in terms of the technology makes that easier to capture who is delaying and who is actually producing their work quicker. And we take all those things into account, which makes it quite really interesting. So size doesn't matter much here, especially when you think about the online model. The physical model, yeah, size may require more staff to be on hand, because when you have you wouldn't have one staff dealing with more than 4 groups. It would be about one staff per 3 for 3 groups. But in an online model, it's a bit more easier.
Yeah, you make a very good point, Ike. The online model actually is scalable, much more scalable, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Whereas in person, you're kind of bound by the nature of the room, size of the room, and so on. So that's a wonderful point.
The strategy there is also to have a clear instruction for students. So we give them the instruction 1 week ahead, and over the week we remind them. So you are expected to do this. You need to read this. And sometimes I structure their reading in a way I point them to the key topics they need to read. So all that early preparation, it takes time, but once you've done it in class, you actually just relax and watch it happen. If there is anything to comment, I remember, Sarah, it was about the unsolved metrics. That was the only thing students didn't really understand in one of the activities we did, and I had to quickly explain that in 2 minutes, and that was all intellectual contribution I did in that course. So it can be really quite interesting as well. Yeah.
Now, we have over 70 people who joined us today, and we appreciate everybody's participation. I'm thinking some of the people who are with us today are young educators, early scholars, early career scholars, doctoral students, and so on. So if I'm new to education and I want to do something new, creative, and take advantage of this, accountability that we talked about, problem solving, active learning, real world learning, lots of merits to team-based learning, right? So, but how do I get started? If, I don't have quite the confidence yet. I haven't been in the classroom teaching very long. I'm just, finished my PhD. I'm a junior scholar. So, how do you ensure me? I mean, what's your best practice, best advice, Margaret, Ike, and Sarah? I mean, to get me going, so that I'm not overwhelmed and I don't see it as a major challenge. And I still feel like I'm going to be in control and I will not lose control, because there's a lot of organization to it, upfront especially.
And Sarah would come, and I will use this expression: I make disciples. I try to get people, more people, to get interested in team-based learning. So what I've done myself is to encourage the GTAs, the graduate teaching assistants, to come along and participate in the team-based learning, be guidance to the students. So once they go through that process, they have some idea how the model works, and they can actually begin to participate and actually lead out on their own. It don't need a lot of skill set to do that. Maybe you just need to attend some of the initial training around it. It's not a lot, but there's also a lot of support from the team-based learning network. And maybe Sarah and Margaret can talk more on that.
I would suggest generally, if you're early stage, is find colleagues that share your enthusiasm. Perhaps find a mentor, find someone that's doing it, and sit in. I remember once asking a colleague if I could sit in their lectures, because I'd heard really engaging lectures, and you'll find people are willing informally to support you, and it's just find like-minded people that are enthusiastic about this, because we all win, we all share good practice, the business school does better. So I find generally approaching people to get some support, and there might even be resources available as well. Perhaps there's funds within the school to try something. We have internal resources available for people to apply for and to get extra support, and perhaps get some resources to help you bring in a consultant, go to a workshop, and participate yourself. Sarah?
I've just shared a link in chat to the Team-Based Learning Collaborative, which is where Ike and I found resources when we were interested in it. Some of this stuff you need to be able to log in, but a lot of it you can just see. So Ike and I found out about it. We actually went and attended a couple of workshops, and we found a team-based learning expert who came and gave a seminar, which was the seminar that Margaret attended. So there is a big community of team-based learning educators, and we're very open. We like, as Ike said, we like finding disciples. And of course, we are very easy to find at the Adam Smith Business School. You can always, anybody is very, very welcome to get in touch with us. We like talking to people.
Outstanding, outstanding. We're out of time, but you have accomplished a lot, in the sense that you have inspired us. You have shown us the way. You have clearly demonstrated the advantages of team-based learning, and are encouraging everybody else on this seminar to explore and look at other models as well. I'll ask each of you to make some final comments, and we'll wrap up. Ike, looks like you're ready to go.
Yeah, I would say that even though we're in the business school, we have had opportunity to organize this training for other departments, engineering, other department, education, other departments in the school. So it's really about having a group of people who are interested to learn a bit more about different approaches of providing learning to students. I am not a traditional academic, as you can see. I'm much more, I like applied models, and I was brought in the school to look at innovative models of, although I'm now being co-opted teaching, but in real sense, for me, it's more what I can do with technology, what I can do with innovative thinking, how we can flip the learning, and that's what interests me. Yeah.
I think we're just about out of time, but maybe I could flag up that Glasgow hopes to run the AIB UKI conference in 2023 in real time. We'd love to welcome you there, and there'll definitely be pedagogy on the agenda.
Wonderful, wonderful. We'll count on it. Sarah?
I would just say set high expectations of your students and set clear expectations. And if you set high expectations, you will be surprised what students can accomplish. And these two show this every time I work with them.
Mm-hmm. And I like that idea that you shared, Margaret, that in semester one, you kind of prepare the students for group learning. 25 to 75% is reversed in the second semester. You kind of give them a little bit of time to, and they know that in the second semester, they're going to be 75% graded on the group work. So I think that that is helpful pedagogical tool as well. But we cannot thank you enough, Margaret, Ike, and Sarah. You have certainly provided a lot of food for thought. You have given us a very good model to explore, to learn more about. And we look forward to sharing your resources with the group here. I want to thank you on behalf of the AIB Teaching and Education SIG and GSU-CIBER, as well as Cyber MSI community. We thank everybody who joined us here, and please stay online to answer a few questions before you log off. And we will see you at another webinar in the very near future. Thank you all, and have a good rest of your day.